Please welcome to the stage from CNH, Head of Construction Brands, Terry Dolan.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Terry Dolan, and I lead the CNH Construction Commercial Brands for North America. That is the Case Construction brand and the New Holland Construction brand. And I want to welcome everybody to Groundbreaker Stage. And we got a really great opportunity to have a conversation with somebody who I think we all remember and all know really, really well. And that's, I'll introduce here in a second. But the topic we're going to be talking about is something that somebody asked me the other day. They said, how long have you been, how many CONEXPOs have you come to? This is my 12th. So that makes me kind of old now somehow. But in this conversation, the conversation we're going to have today is something that's been similar all that time, which is the difficulty we've had, the persistence we've had in trying to get skilled trades and skilled laborers. So it's a conversation we're going to have with a friend of mine. And so I'd like to introduce Mike Rowe. Mike? So, Mike, welcome, and wow, we got a packed house here. I was not expecting this.
Well, it's a modest house, but it's packed nevertheless.
Yes. The house is full.
That's it, man.
The house is full.
It's easier to fill the small ones than the big. This is great. It's good to be here. Thanks for coming out. Look at these chairs, dude. It's like you guys are just like in a living room.
It's like,
that's awesome.
So it's been great. Mike and I, over the past couple of days, have gotten to meet each other. Found a couple of things that we've had in common, right? I think that's really important when you're meeting people, is try to find some of those connection points. And one of the things we discovered is Mike and my younger brother both attend the same university in Baltimore, Towson University.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Class of 84. God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other one is I recently got involved with the board of directors for an organization called Scouting America in Milwaukee, Kenosha, and Racine counties in Wisconsin. And it's around what used to be Boy Scouts, but it's now Scouting America, right? So it's everybody that's involved. And Mike is an Eagle Scout, so it's really...
1979, yeah. Yeah.
So Mike, let's just even talk about like the Eagle Scout. What are the things that taught you about some of the topics we're going to be talking about today?
Well, I mean, there have been some changes in the Boy Scouts. For me, I mean, back in the mid-'70s, I was like a weirdly shy kid. I had a stammer, you know. My father was worried I was backward, and he basically dragged me to a scout meeting. I didn't even know what it was, but I remember walking into the basement of, it was the church where I grew up, Kenwood, and these guys were playing a game called British Bulldog, right? It's basically, whatever it is you think of the Boy Scouts, this was a gang. This was like 40 guys, and there's one kid standing in the middle of the floor, and all 40 charge across, and his job is to tackle one of them and lift them off the ground long enough to yell 1, 2, 3 British Bulldog, right? And then that kid stays in the middle with him, and then they charge back and they tackle another one and grab him. I'm like, this is like rugby on steroids. So I jump into this game, I sprain a finger, I get a bloody nose, you know. It was not a safe space. No. But it was fun, and after the game, there was a first aid class, I remember. And there was like a boxing ring where kids settled their differences. And anyway, I could talk for hours about them, but the short version is scouting for me was about not just getting out of your comfort zone, but about enjoying it. You know, our scoutmaster was a retired lieutenant colonel. He ran the whole thing like a platoon.
Yeah, and one of the things that what I like about it is when the kids are learning trades. They're learning to do skills. They're learning to get things that are...
Well, they called them merit badges.
Right, yeah.
Because it was rooted in merit. It was rooted in competency and skill.
So when I came out here, I talked about, you know, that the challenge that we have, and we continue to see it in our industry, and it's in a lot of industries, right? And there's over 2,000 manufacturers, suppliers, et cetera, that are here showcasing a lot of what they do over this week here in Las Vegas. And there's also, you know, 150,000 other people that are attending CONEXPO this week who are contractors and into trades, et cetera. And we all have this kind of common difficulties, challenge. So when you think about the challenges of attracting people into the trades, What do you think where does that start?
Dude, I mean, honestly, that's a 400-page book.
Yeah.
I can't get around to finishing, but I started it, and the short version is, for me, I think you can walk it back to what is probably the most harebrained decision in the history of modern education, which was to take shop class out of high school. Mm-hmm. So that, I mean, I was young when it happened, but I remember it. It was the mid-'70s. Yeah. And in those days, we had decided as a society that higher ed needed a push, you know? And I agree. I think it did. We needed more engineers. We needed more doctors. We needed more people pursuing those kinds of degrees. But the thing about PR, it always happens. It overreaches. So in our effort to push more people into a 4-year path, we didn't just say, hey, this would be great for you. Look at the kind of money you can make. Look at the opportunities that exist over here. We said, if you don't do that, you're going to wind up turning a wrench. Exactly. Right? You're going to wind up with some, I don't know, like a vocational consolation prize.
Working in a factory.
Exactly.
Yep.
So on the one hand, we took shop class out of high school, which effectively removed from view any visual proof that these jobs even existed. And then we embarked on this giant push for the universities. And like a frog in the boiling water, the temperature just went up and up and up and up and up. And suddenly we got this thing called a skills gap. Back in 2008, suddenly we had 2.3 million open positions. Country went into a recession in 2009. 12 million people were unemployed by the end of 2009, but we had millions of jobs that didn't require a 4-year degree that people weren't trained to do.
Right.
But we kept lending money that we didn't have to kids who'd never be able to pay it back to train them for a bunch of jobs that didn't exist anymore. Skills gap got wider, and then suddenly, $1.7 trillion in outstanding student loans.
Yep.
So you flash all that forward, and today it's, geez, you still got the stigmas and the stereotypes and the myths and the misperceptions that keep a whole generation of kids from giving these jobs an honest look. Those are still with us. But now, Terry, we've also got what's called a population collapse going on around the world. People aren't having kids the way they used to.
No.
So, like, that's an issue that nobody talks about. But here in this country, too, you guys see it, I'm sure, every day at work. It's the graying of the skilled workforce. 5 retire, 2 come in. 5 out, 2 in, 5 out, 2 in. That's been going on for 12 years now.
Yeah. No, it's been a huge challenge.
It's a math problem. It's a PR problem, and now it's an existential problem.
So, but I think that's kind of why we're here, right? I think that's why we're here. Is we've got a big audience here today. We've got, again, a lot of other people here listening to this and who are involved in this as well. I look at it, there's got to be some things that right now we are doing well. So if you think about some of the things that maybe we as an industry are doing well right now to help with the skill trade, this gap, what would you say are some of those things that we are doing right?
Oh, I think individually, lots of companies are doing an amazing job of reinvigorating the trades within their vertical. But it's hard for those companies to tell their own story in a persuasive way without, right? Like, it's hard to do that. I mean, I've known Caterpillar for years. We've partnered together around my foundation. They've got a great program internally called Think Big. Yep. They've had huge results with that. I talked to Jim Farley over at Ford the other day. I think those guys are going to build their own trade schools internally, just like Henry Ford did. He's got 6,000 open bays right now, and it's not because there are no cars or trucks that need fixing. He doesn't have the skilled workers. And these are basically AI-proof 6-figure jobs.
Yeah, we'll talk about the AI because that is such a huge change and how fast it's changing. But, I look at, and I'm sure there's people in here today who are doing it themselves. They're doing that individual recruiting, right? And they're going to schools and they're doing training of new people that are coming into their organizations and try to fill that gap themselves. So when we look at it, again, this is why I think we're all here. We all have to take some ownership to this.
Well, you guys
as
are
an organization, and I guess when you look at it, like what you think of 1 or 2 things we could be focusing on as an organization, right? As a population of folks in this room that can make an impact. What would you say they are?
Well, they're not 3. There's only 1.
Yeah.
There's one thing. What is persuasive? What is the most persuasive case you can make for your trade? And how do you make it? What can Case do outside of Case to make the case?
Right.
Right? That the mastery of a trade and hard work can still lead to something that looks a lot like prosperity. I would even say, ConExpo, you've been here, you said 12?
This is my 12th, so that's...
I'm only on 8.
Yeah.
But every time I come here, it's the same thing. In a way, it's like going to church in the sense that you're surrounded by like-minded people who all... I'm sorry, my back's kind of to you guys. How are you? You don't get bogged down in a bunch of exposition. Everybody here kind of gets it, like from the dirty jobs days. You don't have to explain things. Everybody here knows that if the people who come to ConExpo all called in sick for 2 weeks, the party's over. Like, you guys know that. Much of the country doesn't. Yeah. And so, in spite of the size of this event, the number of people in the country who have no idea it's going on is enormous. And in a relative sense, the country has no idea what Palantir or Anduril or Case or Caterpillar or Ford or GM or FedEx or UPS or Home Depot or Lowe's. They have no idea what they're doing internally to reinvigorate the trades, but they're doing really great work. So part of what has to happen, in my opinion, this year is that there has to be a more consolidated effort to let the country know what's happening. And honestly, the thing that has to happen before that is the country really needs to understand just how serious the skills gap is. And I don't want to overstate it. I'm not an alarmist. I've been doing this 17 years. And I've never seen anything like what's happening right now. I mean, not a week goes by that I don't get a call from the leader of some essential industry. And Terry, they're not casually curious about recruiting. They're freaked out. They are freaked out. I got a call. Do you guys know Blue Forge Alliance? Have you heard of this? Blue Forge oversees the Maritime Industrial Base. Yep. That's 16,000 individual companies who are collectively charged with building and delivering 3 nuclear submarines to the Navy every year, 2 Columbia, 1 Virginia class. It's a hugely important endeavor, right? The world's changed. Submarines, they're the tip of the spear for our national defense. Things go hypersonic or sideways with Taiwan, our aircraft carriers are exposed like they weren't before. Subs matter. And this guy calls and says, we're having a hell of a time recruiting tradespeople. Can you help? I don't know, man. How many do you need? And without missing a beat, the guy says 400,000. 400,000 welders, electricians, CNC operators, and so forth. 400,000. He says, we've looked everywhere. Do you know where they are? I'm like, yeah, dude, I know where they are. They're in the 8th grade.
But I think I think that's a great point. They are at early stage, right? And so, trying to recruit 18 or 20 or 24-year-old potentially into the trade is difficult, right? So we do need to start at earlier stages. How do we get even earlier than 8th grade, right? So how do we get it into the schools? How do we get it part of what people are learning? Well,
look, I mean, I think once upon a time, we kind of did it by accident. We did it with Lincoln Logs. Yeah. We did it with Lego. We engaged curiosity and creativity early on, and we did it with a lot of pride and a lot of hands-on stuff. And then once that kid, got a little older, you mentioned the Boy Scouts. Well, Maybe it wasn't the Boy Scouts. Maybe it was Skills USA. Or maybe it was Future Farmers of America or the 4-H Club. These civic, youth-based organizations, I mean, all of them have a couple things in common, but the big thing is they require their members to raise their hand and take an oath, some sort of pledge. And that's a really powerful thing to get a kid to do, you know? And when you combine that level of personal responsibility and introspection with a steady diet of competency and skills-based training, that matters. And then what happens? That kid around the same time winds up in high school. And what's there? It's shop class.
Yeah.
Hey, that's great. I learned some of that in the Boy Scouts. Maybe I'll fabricate this. Maybe I'll build that out of wood. Maybe auto shop makes more sense to my brain. So, but no, we took that away. And then we did a lot of things to those youth-based civic organizations. We got careful with them in a way that I don't think, well, I'll just say it led to some unintended consequences. And I don't even know if you can buy Lincoln Logs anymore.
I think you can on eBay.
Right. Yeah, but you only get one. You can't build anything with it. So, I mean, my point is, a lot of things sort of happen culturally at the same time. The trades became a kind of punchline. You could see it in sitcoms. You know, some of you are old enough to remember One Day at a Time. Schneider, the handyman.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he was the brunt of every joke. You know, how come all the plumbers are 300 pounds with giant butt cracks, right? I mean, what? No offense, but I mean, right? Like, that's what you see on the TV all the time. And at the same time, there's this steady diet. Call it Wall Street or maybe Madison Avenue telling us that, you know, we'd be so much happier if we worked less.
Yeah.
We'd be so much happier if our boss wasn't such a so-and-so, or if we didn't have to. So work becomes the enemy. Skill becomes something somebody else can do. Shop class gets walked behind the barn and shot in the head. Can't get a Lincoln Log anymore, right? So like, it's all these things individually, no big deal. Add them together, the skills gap is not a mystery. It's a reflection of what we value. And we have right now 7.6 million open positions in this country, most of which don't require a 4-year degree.
Yeah, and it's also even additional challenges. So I look at us as a manufacturing company. So we have manufacturing plants around the world, but I'll look at even some of our locations. Most of our manufacturing is done more in rural America, right? And it was kind of the backbone. And then when you look at places, you could just say like Fargo. So Fargo, North Dakota, at times could have an unemployment rate that's 1 or 2%, 3%. So it's not necessarily the gap, it's the population. Mm-hmm. So how do we attract people that say, you know, in Fargo, I'm sure there's people here in Fargo who love the bitter cold, but you know, how do we bring people back to want to go to where some of the skilled trade positions are needed as well?
Look, that may be out of my lane a little bit, but I'll tell you what I believe. Nobody wants a lecture. Nobody wants a sermon. Nobody wants to be scolded. And nobody wants to be marketed to, at least not in a boring, predictable way. Most PR, it's terrible, Terry, because it overreaches. Fargo, not as bad as you may have heard. Not as cold as you've been told. We just start by apologizing for things. You know, I mean, my foundation does a lot. We spend a lot of time trying to be authentic and honest and transparent about the nature of the opportunities that exist. But the only reason I have an opportunity to do that today, the only reason I get to go to Congress every so often and yell at those knuckleheads, and the only reason I'm invited to big companies to have these conversations is because I did a show called Dirty Jobs. And on Dirty Jobs, these themes were always present, but they were never here. They were just under the surface. Dirty Jobs was an entertainment proposition. It was a love letter to hard work and skilled labor, and that part of our workforce who does essential work out of sight and out of mind. Yep. But its job was to entertain. Its job was to make people laugh and make people curious. And once you do that, and that's actually my answer to your question. you have to get people's attention in a real human way. It's not easy, but it is possible.
But it's definitely something that, again, I think we all have ownership in that. Every single person in this room, every single person around here, we all have to try to build a better PR, right? To build a better story, to build a better message.
Well, your first question was how do you take the message to the people, right? I'm here this year because my friends at AEM and I Make America put my big giant head on the back of a bus. It's a fabulous bus if you haven't seen it. But more importantly, on the side of the bus are faces of people who are doing the actual work in the manufacturing business. You know these faces. Some of them may be yours for all I know. I don't. But that bus has already been to 25, 26 states. We're going to get to all 50. That bus is essentially shop class on wheels. It goes to these places. It's almost evangelical. It's a chance to get out of our own way and get the message to kids who need to hear it, right? So, we need 1,000 buses like that. And we need way more efforts like the ones that I know are happening in many of the companies who are here at this expo. We just have to get behind all of it and talk about it more broadly and more persuasively.
Yeah. So we think about, again, there's a lot of incredible technology that's being showcased here by so many different manufacturers that are trying to solve some of the gap with autonomous vehicles, using AI, those kind of things. So when you think about that, does AI become a friend to us? Does it become a foe to us? How do you look at that? I mean, it's...
Well, I'll tell you this, man. In season 2 of Dirty Jobs, I violated a lot of barnyard animals on that show, right? I mean, I did a lot of things to all creatures, great and small. And I can't talk about AI today without bursting out in laughter because for me, it meant artificial insemination. That's the only thing it meant for a long time. And what I learned about this country, season 1 of Dirty Jobs, I wound up on the cover of TV Guide and the caption said,
you might have explained TV Guide to some people.
Oh, TV Guide used to be a very popular magazine that would let the average American know what was on television. And I was very excited to see my face on the cover of that thing back in 2003 with a headline that said, Discovery Channel's Mike Rowe brings you feces from every species, right? That was season 1 of the show. Season 2, they had a picture of me with a turkey upside down between my legs as I was going through the artificial insemination process. I doubt in your pre-prepared question.
I don't think that was one of them. I'm going back.
I doubt we're going to discuss the business of collecting semen from a turkey. But my honest answer is AI, no matter how you define it, has always been on the cutting edge of science. And, in the artificial insemination world, that goes all the way back to 1760, Charles Bakewell, I guess it was. Today, it is artificial intelligence, and it is changing, to your point, everything so fast that who am I to handicap it? Elon Musk said 2 days ago that 3 years from now, there'll be more Optimus surgeons, robots, performing surgery than human surgeons. Within 4 years, he said every single American will have access to a level of health care that's as good or better than what the president has access to today. Now, I look at that, and it's hard to imagine, but Elon Musk has a big brain and a lot of money, and who am I to second guess him? I do wonder what will happen with autonomous vehicles. I mean, they're here. There's an insurance company right now that is offering a 50% rebate for people who have an autonomous driving car that allows the insurance company to monitor your habits as the driver. And the less frequently you touch the wheel, the lower your premium gets, right? So there's going to be a huge effort to trust the tech, and it's going to work. My question is, When autonomous vehicles are ubiquitous, accident rates are going to fall by 95%. Well, what's going to happen to State Farm? What's going to happen to Allstate? What's going to happen to the insurance industry? What's going to happen to collision repair? Right? So on the one hand, we're entering a world of unintended consequences so vast that I'm uncomfortable even predicting it. In the short term, it sure seems like the real job security exists here. They learn to code, they told us. Learn to code. Get that software thing worked out. Kid, you'll go far. They're coming for the coders. They're not coming, AI is not coming for the welders.
They're not. And that's, you see a lot of companies now that they've done some large layoffs.
Huge.
Replacing with utilizing AI. And that would be one of the things, like, you know, how we get that message out that the trades, many of them, as at least the way we see it today, would not be replaceable by AI or those kind of things. How does that message get out that it does become a more stable career for somebody?
Again, the evidence demands a verdict. My foundation has helped 3,500 people get trained very specifically. Welders, steam fitters, pipe fitters, linemen, shipbuilders, HVAC, electricians, so forth. They're prospering. Most of them are six figures. All of them are on a path to it. How do you get that message out? Well, if you're me, you sit down every couple of days and you interview these people 6, 7 years after they mastered their trade. You listen to them. And then you put that interview, God help me, on TikTok or Instagram or Snapchat, if that's still a thing, or Facebook or YouTube. You put it out there. And then you do it again the day after that. And you build undeniable proof that these jobs are real, that they're open, and that filling them, look, when I started this thing, it was all about, hey, let me get you a skill that's in demand. I'll get you hired. That guy's hiring. You get this skill, and they all live happily ever after. That's still in play, but we're looking today. I mean, it's like only a matter of national security today. That submarine thing is not an exaggeration. The data center thing, I mean, that's another 350, 400,000 electricians alone that they need right now. I told you backstage, and this is anecdotal, but it's true. I just toured a data center in Plano, Texas. I met 3 electricians, right? All under 30, all making north of 250 grand, no debt. And here's the crazy thing. All 3 of them had been poached 3 times in the prior 18 months. Now, your point earlier is important. What's going on in Fargo? What's going on in Tallahassee? What's going on in Akron and Phoenix? Your experience may vary, right? It's not, I can't paint with too broad a brush, but I can tell you in Plano, Texas right now, if you're an electrician, you're basically setting your own schedule, working as much overtime as you want, and waiting for the next best offer. The answer to your question is, for me, I've got to get those guys on camera telling that story. I can tell it on their behalf, but they're more persuasive. And then they've got to be brought to CONEXPO and put on a stage and put on a billboard and put on a hat and put on a bus that'll drive across the country. Those stories matter, you know? The other thing you said backstage that I loved, I don't want to forget, is the signing thing in high school.
Yeah.
You know, for years you would see, oh, this one got signed to play football here or basketball there. A couple years, the first time I saw it, I wrote about it.
It's an amazing thing. What we were talking about is we have a number of our dealers who are recruiting, kids out of high school to come into a training program that teaches them, how to be a technician. They provide the tools. They provide 18 months of training. They provide apprenticeship. But what's great to watch is you'll see them on Instagram is these kids sitting at a table with their parents, putting on the hat of that dealership. It's like such an incredible, prideful moment for these kids. Just like I'm going to go to the University of Miami, where I am.
That's it.
It was fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. So more of that. I mean, I meant it earlier. When the skills gap is not a mystery. It's a reflection of what we value. If we value a kid mastering a trade and celebrating the day that he takes that next step, that's not so different than celebrating a merit badge in the Scouts. You know, you move up through the ranks, and every upward movement is a new celebration. We have to think differently, in my opinion, not just about the nature of work and the definition of a good job. I have to think differently about education. And, you know, Palantir, this company, I'm sure many of you have heard of it. It's run by a guy named Alex Karp. He looks like a mad scientist. He's in the defense contracting space. He's doing remarkable things. And I talked to him the other day about this exact problem. Like, how are you competing for these kids? Yep. And he said, I'll tell you what we're doing. We just took 30 kids straight out of high school, gifted kids, smart, but they're not going to college. They're coming straight to work for me. And what I do is I put them through an accelerated, you're not going to believe this, but an accelerated liberal arts experience. I teach them philosophy, I teach them English, I teach them Western civilization, but for the rest of the day, I put them on some of the most consequential engineering projects unfolding in the country today, like big stakes projects. And we give them skills. It's intense. But 2 years down the road, you got a 22-year-old making $300,000 a year, working for one of the premier companies on the planet with a basic understanding of Nietzsche and Descartes and Western civilization, plus the ability to do any number of skills with a high level of competence.
And also without one other thing,
debt. The only four-letter word that was truly off limits in my household growing up. Debt.
Yeah. I made it. It's a great example. And again, I think these are examples that we as an industry can do, right? Whether it's a smaller business recruiting, it's neighborhood recruiting, or area where we're getting businesses together to do this. I think until we get this to be a prideful to understand, and then understand the incomes that can come out of this are really high incomes in a lot of these jobs.
Stigmas, stereotypes, myths, and misperceptions.
Yep.
You know, I guess it was 8-9 years ago, I shared a story from the Wall Street Journal. The headline was "The Six-Figure Welder." I wasn't shocked. I've met a lot of people who do very, very well in that business, especially the underwater guys. But I got, I don't know, maybe 9 million people on social media channels, and it was stunning, the number of them who simply didn't believe it. It's just simply, it's not possible that you could be making $150,000 a year welding. It's just not possible. And so that's really when I was like, wow, we have to step back even further and just show people again and again and again, like drip, 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 example after example after example. You said pride twice so far, and you're right. You see it walking around here. Yep. You see it in the exhibitors. You see it in the guests. You see the curiosity. It's like, this is just, I mean, to see the business, the infrastructure, and the architecture of the companies that make the things, the stage we're on, the room we're in, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I drive by bridge projects, road projects, those sorts of things, and the change, the transformation happens in the level of detail, the accuracy, et cetera. So it's incredible. I mean, this industry needs strong talent, bright individuals who see this as a great place to work. And again, that's why I use the word pride. It has to be prideful.
It does. And I agree with that, but I would just take it one step further and say it's not just the industry that needs that. It's the country.
Yeah.
It's the fat part of the bat is not the companies who are competing somewhat desperately to hire, and it's not this generation of kids who don't yet have the skills they need to prosper in those industries. It's the 300 million other Americans who share my addiction to smooth roads and affordable electricity and indoor plumbing and all the other things that make civilized life work. The trick, in my view, is to engage the whole country in a new level of appreciation, gratitude, and an understanding of what it is you guys do day in and day out. That's table stakes, to use a Vegas term. That's where we have to start. Because if the country isn't properly gobsmacked by the miracle of that bridge you described,
yep,
or any number of other miracles you guys pull off in the course of your days, weeks, and months, then we're just pushing a rock up the hill. We've got to get the whole country engaged, and we can. We're just not going to do it by flipping a switch.
No, it's not. But and again, that's why I was blown away by the volume of people that were in here to have this conversation today, and it's important. So when I guess maybe if you start thinking about policy, right? Because some of the start is, the recipe policy has to be more investment that goes into this area, right? To help make this aware. It needs to be more into the education system, right? Because it needs to be, whether it's bring shop class back, but it's to bring the conversation back even before shop class in 11th grade that you're forced to take. It's got to be in that kindergarten on that it becomes part of conversation of these types of jobs.
Sure. So, that's pretty granular. You're talking about local PTAs, you're talking about mayors, and for sure that has to happen. But, we were talking, again, with the I Make America guys just yesterday. They're looking at policy. They spend a fair amount of time in D.C. I try hard to stay out of the political thing. It's difficult. But there's a congressman that I had on my podcast just last month. It's a great example of a policy that I'm going to bet none of you have heard of a bill in Congress called Jumpstart. Jumpstart allows you know it?
Yeah.
How the heck do you know that?
Wow, that's awesome.
What's your name? Forrest? How long did it take you to grow that beard, dude? That's fantastic. All right, we don't have a mic, so I don't want to do it, but you're looking at a 529. Okay.
So did everybody hear that?
He's got a 529. His kid, that's your
His
kid?
son.
All right, what's your name, son? James? What are you going to be? What's the plan? Okay. James wants to get in the trades. He's got a 529. That means his dad set a bunch of money aside, tax deferred, right, into a fund that will allow James to go to a college or a trade school, to be fair, right? The 529 is pretty broad that way. Jumpstart will allow James, should he enter the trades, to buy the tools he needs to do the job he wants to do. And that's not a small thing. You guys know the tools are expensive. It could also allow him to buy a work truck. Could also allow him to buy a piece of necessary hardware, some of which we've probably seen out here on display. That is consequential in a huge way. We've been so preoccupied for the last 5-6 years talking about student loan forgiveness. Doesn't matter what you think about that. This isn't that. This is incentivizing a kid to take an interest in his future or her future. But now we're putting our thumb back on the scale to get the trades elevated to where a 4-year degree had been primary for many decades. This has to pass, So Riley Moore was the congressman out of West Virginia. And I think it's a true bipartisan bill. Hasn't passed yet. There's still some resistance to it that I don't quite understand. But since you used the P word, policies matter.
Yep.
And we have to pay attention to that stuff. And if Jumpstart passes, that's a step in the right direction. Good luck, Jim.
So maybe it's something that you can help us with, because we all have a chance to influence, right? So if anybody in this audience, anybody here attending, any of us that are displaying here had an opportunity to speak to any of our policymakers, what would be that elevator speech we give them? What would be that real quick statement that says, we need your help regarding this?
Incentives. What did you do today, Mr. or Mrs. Elected Official, to incentivize the closing of America's skills gap. What did you do? What did CASE do today? What did MicroWorks do today? What did AEM do? You know, it's not an elevator pitch. It's an elevator question. Part of my job this year within my own foundation is to help get that question answered. Like I'm seriously envisioning like a 2-minute show that pops up all over the place. Today on Closing America's Skills Gap, check out what CASE is doing. Check out what Representative Riley Moore is doing from West Virginia, and just get those stories out there. They have to be asked. Because look, I mean, it's just, again, the skills gap is not a mystery. It's a reflection of what we value. What are we doing to incentivize the next generation to learn a skill that's in demand? What are you doing to help them? How are you telling their story? How are you telling your own story? Some answers are better than others. We need to magnify the good answers.
Yeah, and I think, Mike, one of the other things with the trades often is diversity. You know, so not only do we have to attract more people into this, but also make sure the diversity is there, right? So it's male, female, it's all sorts of people. How do we do that?
Again, I think diversity is a wonderful thing. I think it's a wonderful symptom. I'm not sure how I think of it in terms of a goal, because the goal ought to be merit, right? A merit badge shouldn't have anything to do with what you look like or where you come from or who you married or who you didn't. It's merit. So yeah, I mean, I would start with that. But I would also say that when you do that, at least in my little world, we offer work ethic scholarships at MicroWorks, right? We've been doing it for 17 years. And it pisses people off because you got to sign a sweat pledge. And the sweat pledge, you know, some people don't agree with everything that's in it. It's so funny. I just had this call the other day with a parent who was like, why should my son sign a document like this? I'm like, well, what's your problem with the document? She said, well, this first tenet in the sweat pledge, it says, I've won the greatest lottery of all time. I'm alive. I walk the earth. I live in the United States. Above all things, I'm grateful. Well, I'm not sure I agree with that. To which I said, well, look, that's cool. We can still be friends, you know, but this particular pile of free money might not be for you.
Right.
We have to be willing. Right? So that's where I draw the line. I don't care about gender or color or any of that stuff. But now, looking back at the 3,500 people who have come through this program, we are way ahead in all of the traditional diversity metrics. In fact, one of our superstars, I talk about her all the time, Chloe Hudson, Tracy Wilson, two women who have, Chloe is like the poster child for every welder you would ever imagine your kid could grow up to be. She's crushing it. She was going to be a plastic surgeon, changed her mind, applied for a scholarship. We gave her like $6,000, didn't even pay for the whole thing. We wanted her to have skin in the game. She becomes a welder, and now she's the lead welder at Joe Gibbs, you know, automotive. It's crazy. Tracy Wilson is working on F-18s, doing the electronics. So we have a lot of women. We have a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds who inherently understand that there's a list of stuff that's out of your control. The way you look, your gender, your blood type, your star sign, right? You can't control that stuff. Your work ethic, come on, man, that's a choice. Whether or not you're grateful, choice. So, my partner's here freaking out probably that I'm going to say this the wrong way. But at MicroWorks, we discriminate. We discriminate every day. We want to know what you stand for. We want to know what you believe in. We want to know why you give a damn and what's important to you. We do not care where you come from or what you look like. We just don't care. And so I think it's part of it too. You know, sorry, was that a rant? I don't mean to get off topic, but look, it's all part of it, Terry. It's all part of it. Like we're struggling right now to some degree with who we are as a country. And I don't know what the right answer is, but I know that part of what we're struggling with is this whole idea of what's a good job, what's aspirational. You know, I don't want to screw my kids up. What should I tell them? What's good advice? What's bad advice? We have to figure all that out. All I know for sure is that when you're looking at aspirational people living balanced lives, so many are there because they mastered a skill that was in demand. And that's what your company has provided for years. That's what this
industry does.
That's what this exhibition celebrates.
Right.
And that's why you guys are emissaries.
Yeah. And I think, you know, Mike, so first of all, we so greatly appreciate your time, your commitment to our industry, right? And, you know, you've been out here all week with us, and it's been awesome. But I think it's, you know, listening to Mike, you know, I know I personally, my company, my industry, we need to do something different to help this, you know, create this momentum around us. Yeah, we can't talk about it. Talking about it doesn't solve it. Getting engaged with it helps to solve it. You know, and I think that's one of the things that I think I learned here today.
One shameless plug,
sure,
if I may. For the last 11 years, our enrollment period for these scholarships has lasted about 6 months. This year, because the world has changed, it's open 9 months. Last year, I got 10 times the applications than I did the year before. 10 times. I think that's good news.
That's great news.
I didn't do anything different. I'm the same smart aleck out in the world telling the same stories, right? 10 times the applications. This is super encouraging. So I doubled down with my partners who have been very supportive, and we've set aside $10 million this year for this scholarship plan. These are targeted scholarships for the aforementioned trades, not for four-year schools, but for the trades that are celebrated here at ConExpo. You asked early, you know, what can the people in this room do? From my selfish, narrow perspective, tell your families, tell your kids, the money's there. There are lots of other great organizations who are doing what they can to elevate all this. But we've been at it a while. We're super stingy with the money. You got to earn it. You got to jump through some hoops, but it's there. And if you know somebody who would benefit from applying, it would be our privilege to help you get the skill you need.
Well, listen, Mike, I so greatly appreciate your time and love to.